Okay, my name is Nick Dutch, and I've been doing some videos recently about tarot spreads, about all that kind of like fun stuff, because it is related to my work, because my work is to be a professional tarot reader. And on top of that, it's something which I'm involved with like each and every single day, because it's my work, and that's why I do it, and so on and so forth. But there's one like little question that's going on like inside your mind, and that is, how would you possibly ever do something which could even remotely be, regarded as being accurate or good or effective through just using various different tools? Well, the tools are there for the purposes of assisting you in creative problem solving and creative thinking, to the most part. When we're talking about symbols or objects which have symbolism on them, okay, that's what defines the function of the device itself. The device in this case being a pack of cards, and then a pattern will be created as a result of dishing out those cards in a particular pattern. And often readers tend to use language to suggest that it is the outcome of the cards in the reading, or the rune stones or whatever, which is somehow defined by the universe. Now that might be true to a certain extent. There might actually be some truth there. When I had a look at that book by Isaac and Sargent, it talked about all of the classic experiments done into psi, and the fact that patterns from random pattern generators would turn out in particular patterns as a result of people deploying their concentration in the right type of environment. Does seem to suggest that random occurrences could be possibly affected by consciousness. Alright, Dean Radin did something very similar when he talked about using the various random number generators and working out whether there was some kind of statistical significance to the numbers that came out as a result of happenings in the world, and people's therefore attention and intention in particular directions. I'm not going to turn around to you and say that that is gospel truth. I'm going to turn around to you and say that that is a hypothetical point of view which you can try and put to the test yourself. Sometimes, you get the occasional result which makes you think that way. But sometimes you have to challenge what you think as a result of what you've experienced in order to come closer to the truth. So there's sometimes when I do a reading in which I'm thinking along those lines that whatever is going to turn up from the deck itself is essentially the answer. That's the way in which I think about it to the most part when I'm using that particular model or approach, and sometimes it's useful and sometimes it's not, because once in a while you'll get a card turning up which probably shouldn't be there, and you think to yourself, it doesn't make any sense. So either you inquire more deeply of your client to inquire why some particular things might have come out in the reading. If it resonates with them, then it's useful information. It might even not be accurate, but it could still be useful in assisting the client to help to move forward with their thinking about a particular situation. So in that respect, the organization of the cards themselves is something which gives you random thought generation, okay, creative random thought generation. But your understanding of where the symbology is for each little symbol within the card means that your attention will be directed to something in particular, whether that's shape, color, form, an object in the imagery itself, maybe the astrological symbolism of the card. The astrological symbolism of the card can be quite useful for those who are following that particular line of thought. For others, it can be the Hebrew letters, and they might suddenly jump out at you. You may get a reading in which case, in one particular situation, it's the numbers, another situation, it's the Hebrew letters or the colors or something else, which just seems to jump out at you. And after having spent years developing some kind of intuitive understanding of the symbolism, you can then create your reading. That's a way of looking at it. Now, another way of looking at it is to assume that the outcome of the cards is arbitrary. Okay, it is random. It's just a random outcome. But on the other hand, there could be something happening within your mind which could be the thing you're actually reading from. Now, if there is something inside your mind which you're actually reading from, then there's got to be some way for the mind to have access to that information. So then we have to get into a discussion or a debate or thinking about what it means to become receptive and, training yourself up. And for that purpose, if you just bear with me a second, I'll just move this out of the way. Right. I've brought Cindy Dale's book along. Quite a fun little text. Doesn't specifically go into great detail and depth, but because it does tell you about various different things, you could possibly use those ideas creatively. Now, you're probably very bored with people talking about chakras because everyone on the face of the bloody planet talks about them. And that can be frustrating and infuriating because there's no real movement forward in terms of the understanding as to what they are, what they're there for, and indeed what can you use them for when attempting to be receptive. Now, there was a time, like many years ago, when I wasn't as much of a well-rounded, decent, integrated person as I am now, and I was hanging out with a group of hippie people, and I smoked weed with them. Okay, I'm just being honest with you. But when I did, I had a moment to actually be quiet, and I decided to visualize all of the chakras opening up, one at a time, in sequence, from base to crown. I took time over it. I did it meditatively. My visualization was strong, because it was at the time, for obvious reasons. And when I finally reached the top chakra and felt the type sensation as the crown opened up, I then received, in the form of words in the mind, some of the most powerful and profound insights which have actually changed my life path in very significant and positive ways. This is merely a fact of my personal history. Okay, and if it wasn't for that moment, I don't think that I would be able to have progressed my life in the way in which I have. Alright, that seeming expression of words from spirit or spirit's guides at the time when I opened the crown chakra showed me that the exercise, the middle pillar exercise, whereby you sit nice and comfortable and upright but relaxed, and then you visualize these different chakras opening up, knowing where they are in the body, has an effect. So therefore, through experience, I can tell you that if you want to become more receptive, and you want to be able to be more sensitive to things going on inside the mind, going by the assumption that there is some kind of otherworldly, non-physical force which has your best interests at heart out there, maybe it'll be worthwhile practicing that. Practice the middle pillar exercise, practice the visualization of the opening of the chakras, and not to be afraid to ask questions. Now, when you're in meditation, alright, one of the cool things about it is you're not yourself, okay, and you have the ability to be more able to experience what's going on inside the mind. Obviously, if you're someone who learns mindfulness, you learn to put into perspective what goes on inside the mind, so it doesn't necessarily direct your thoughts and feelings and actions in the physical world. But that's not necessarily why you want to do it. So it's not mindfulness meditation you need to be interested in. Although, no, let me rephrase that. We all should be doing mindfulness, full stop. Everyone should, worldwide. So download some apps and do it. But if you're looking to experience and explore what goes on inside the mind, if you're looking to potentially be receptive, okay, to energy which is affecting consciousness, then I think that it's the middle pillar exercise which you need to do more of. There was also a psychic development class in which I attended, in which it was suggested that after the visualization of the chakras, you should then be reaching up out of the top of your head in your visualization to the stars and bringing down star energy, celestial energy. All right, as well as reaching down your root chakra, down your feet, down your legs, okay, into the earth with your visualization, to reach into the magma, the hot, the burning, the core of the earth, and to draw that up into the middle. Alright, so the idea is you've then got universal energy from two different sources, and your energy field can then become brighter and more powerful. That's the theory. But that's also a place where you can then direct the energy with intention from. This is all hypothetical. I know it's all hypothetical. And I know it's only based upon the experiences of one particular individual who's like buying the books and doing the exercises, so you don't have to. All right, you don't have to go through as much learning and experience as I've had to. But it's worthwhile thinking about. There will, of course, be other people who have completely different attitudes to what's required and will explain it very differently. But I do think that people tend to explain this stuff in very simplistic terms, which can then have a negative effect upon how clearly you perceive the little twists of consciousness which you'll need to perceive. The things which pop into your visualization spontaneously, the occasional word which you hear in your imagination. It's very difficult to put into words. Very difficult. And maybe even using words is inappropriate, because like the visualization of the chakras and entering into that opened up state of mind and filling yourself with universal love or whatever it is, these things are relatively easy to be glib about when you're discussing them. But it's not easy to transition someone from just hearing about it for the first time after having had zero spiritual experiences in their entire life and never having seen a ghost, having prophetic visions and sharing dreams with people and having an angel experience and diddly-diddly-dee, and trying to get people from the point of view of like complete and utter material world existence into spiritual experience is very challenging. Because people aren't brought up to think along these lines. The culture that we're in is too heavy on the physical. Okay, maybe out of necessity, and that does have its importance, because otherwise you wouldn't have science and technology and all the other good stuff and medicine and surgeries being done on people and it actually working and stuff. So there's still a lot of good which has come out of this rather like heavy world we're in. But there's still this extra dimension to reality, which must have some importance, because it does have some, genuine participatory effect in the world. How and why and under what particular conditions, none of us actually properly know, but it's still there. So I thought I'd leave you with that thought today.